have any experience of caregiving?
I've never done it, but I'm sure I could learn.
Then let's go meet Will.
So I think that you write the screenplay for the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to know what was the main difference between writing this story for a book and writing it for cinema.
I think the first thing is you have to strip out everything that is not completely essential. So maybe when you're writing a book, you can go on and on a bit. You can waffle. You can't do that. You can't afford to include a single scene that isn't absolutely vital to the plot. So that was the biggest change. But also, I think as a writer, you have to imagine yourself behind a camera. So at every single point, you're asking yourself, what is the camera doing here? What is the camera doing? You know, to stop your scenes from being too long or with no movement. And I think for me, the really interesting thing was when we got on set and you start seeing how the words change depending on what action is going on behind them. So for example, Will can't move from the neck down. So all his words achieve greater weight because as an audience, you're entirely focused on his mouth and what comes out of his head. Whereas, say, when Patrick is running, you're half focused on the sight of Patrick running, so the words are not quite as important. And I found that was amazing to be part of.
Yeah, did you had to let something that you liked from the book out adapting to this movie?
Yeah, quite a few things. And I think it's very important as the writer of the book not to be too precious about it, because we've all heard the stories of the writers and the directors who are always arguing. I think it helped me that I sat with Thea for a long time before we even made it to set. But, you know, there are a couple of scenes. We lost Will's sister from the book because she was not essential to our film. We lost the scene in the maze, which again, we agonised over for about 6 months, but we couldn't make it work visually in the way that was needed. And I think that's, you have to be flexible if you're the writer of the book. You have to learn to let stuff go, or else it's going to be an impossible process for everybody.
Would you be interested on adapting also the second book to cinema?
Of course. I mean, I've loved adapting this one so much that I've actually gone on to adapt 2 more books, one of which is with Warner Brothers. So I love the process. I can't imagine anybody else writing about Louisa. I would be banging on MGM's door to tell them off if it was anybody else. But I loved the whole experience. I loved working with Thea. I loved working with Emilia, so we'll see what happens.
I want to ask you about Emilia. Why do you think that Emilia, and Sam Claflin too, they are like good choices for the casting? And I want to know if you had any chance to propose any actor to the casting.
They did ask me, did I have any ideas, but I felt that that's not my area of expertise. You know, I can like actors that I see on screen, but I'm not a director, I'm not a casting director. I don't really know the process. But I knew that Thea was looking at least 300 women for the part of Louisa. And what she did was she sent me links and said, what do you think of this person? What do you think of that person? And I have to say, as soon as I saw those two, especially when we had the audition with the 2 of them together, that's it. For me, that was it. And luckily, everybody felt the same way. So it was easy.
Yeah, I want to know if you ever had any doubts about this ending of the story, because for me it was quite impressive. Of course, I was not expecting this.
Yeah.
And I want to know if you ever had any doubts about, or from the beginning you had really clear that you wanted to tell this story with this ending.
Originally, when I wrote the book, absolutely, I knew that was the ending that I had in mind because it was inspired by the real life story. I have to say, I enjoyed writing those 2 characters. I enjoyed writing the love story so much when I was writing the book that near the end I did wobble. I thought maybe I could just give this a very different ending. But I think that if I had, I don't think the book would have sold 1/5 of the copies that it did. I think the reason people respond to it very strongly is because it's like life, you know, it's true to the character. I think if I'd suddenly changed Will's character and made him less uncompromising, then people would have felt cheated because it's about his story. It's about what do you do if someone you love makes a decision you cannot understand, you possibly cannot accept, but you have to respect. And that for me was the crux of the story.
Please don't tell me you shaved off my eyebrows.
Either one.
Luke tells me you're a bit of an action man before.
Pat?
I bet if we got you on a really good fitness regime...
Patrick?